Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. If you were watching college football this past week, you probably noticed something like this happen during the game, where we'd be in the middle of a play, or an announcer would be in the middle of a sentence, and that
high fly ball, deep left. There it goes, soaring into history.
Yeah, that happened. There were many great things about New York Yankees superstar outfielder Aaron Judge finally hitting home run number 62 to set the American League record. But besides what it meant for baseball, and what it meant from a history standpoint, perhaps the biggest thing was that it meant that finally, ESPN could stop interrupting broadcasts to show a pitcher throw 4 straight balls and pitch around him. And look, whatever your opinion on the whole situation is, and whether you think ESPN made the right call with how they handled Aaron Judge during college football, or whether you think they should have just showed the highlight when he finally hit number 62 and not interrupted other programming, that's up to you. But you can't deny this. ESPN's highly controversial decision, which we'll be talking about for a long time, was the talk of the town. The amount of publicity and backlash ESPN got from this was scathing, because in the eyes of a lot of people, if we wanted to watch the baseball game, we would have watched the baseball game. A random person trying to watch Oklahoma play does not care about Aaron Judge going for the American League record, which isn't even the official MLB record. For them, it was like if an American tennis player was going for the US Open in men's tennis, which hadn't happened in 2 decades, was in the final, and they cut away from the NFL game every time the player had set or match point. So today's story is about the time that college football actually won out. Today's story is about the time that a network had to choose between airing a historic baseball event or a college football game, and they opted to show the college football game, much to the satisfaction of some people and the dismay of others. This is KOLO, the ABC affiliate in Reno, and in 1995, they had to make the absolutely difficult decision to either show the start of the World Series or to show the end of Nevada's game against Louisiana Tech. And the decision they made was, well, let's just say it was in stark contrast with what ESPN did with Aaron Judge. This is the story behind the broadcasting controversy involving ABC, Major League Baseball, and Nevada. Before I talk about the actual controversy in question, we need some context to understand the 2 events that were taking place, and what the original game plan was. And the original game plan was to start off with this game right here. It's October 21st, 1995, and we've got a Big West football game on our hands down in Ruston, Louisiana, between the Nevada Wolfpack and the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. This was a pretty big game for both of these teams, as we were nearing the halfway point in conference play, and this was the first ever meeting between the 2 schools. For Nevada, they entered this game in first place in the conference, sitting at 2-0, following wins against Southwestern Louisiana and New Mexico State. While for Louisiana Tech, they entered at 1-2 following back-to-back losses to New Mexico State and Pacific. Louisiana Tech desperately needs to win this one on their home field to stop their skid following a great 4-1 start overall. If they lost this game, their chances of winning the conference were practically dead in the water. Meanwhile, for Nevada, if they won this game to get to 3-0, they would be in the driver's seat for the Big West title, and to assume the lone automatic bid in the conference, getting a spot in the Las Vegas Bowl, and making it to a bowl game for the first time since 1992. And in Reno, KOLO, the ABC affiliate there, otherwise known as Channel 8, was going to have a perfect sports day in front of them on paper. They were going to televise this game, which started at 1 o'clock Pacific. The game would go on for 3 hours, and following the conclusion of the game, they would make it over for this game right here, which was Game 1 of the World Series between the Cleveland Indians and the Atlanta Braves. To say that people were anticipating this game would be an understatement, especially since there was no World Series the year before in 1994 due to the strike. You had a matchup in this game that featured 2 dominant aces going up against each other. For Cleveland, they had Earl Hershiser, a former Cy Young winner who was so dominant in the ALCS against the Seattle Mariners that he won the MVP of that series, becoming the first player to win the MVP award in both the ALCS and the NLCS. And for Atlanta, they had Greg Maddux, the greatest pitcher in all of baseball. He was must-see TV. He went 19-2 for the Braves that season, leading the National League in wins and leading the NL in ERA with a 1.63 ERA. Oh, and he was the Cy Young winner in each of the past 4 seasons in the National League, to the point where if you were a player on Nevada or Louisiana Tech and you were a senior, you never experienced a single year of your collegiate career where Maddux was not the NL Cy Young winner. He was that good and that dominant. And on top of that, you had 2 absolutely star fan bases who were dying to win a World Series. The Indians hadn't won one since 1948, when they beat the Boston Braves, and hadn't played in a World Series since all the way back in 1954, when they lost 4-0 to the New York Giants. For KOLO, just like a ton of other affiliates across the country, the game plan was to air college football in the afternoon, and then at 4 o'clock Pacific, go down to Atlanta for the very first game of the World Series. Seems like a pretty good plan, right? Heck, Fox is going to do something similar in all likelihood in a few weeks when they televise Game 2 and potentially Game 7 of the World Series. There's just one small problem with this plan, as is the problem with just about every single sporting event minus soccer. What happens if the game runs long? What happens if you've got a football game that just won't end? And now, you have to make the call between cutting away from that game to show the start of the second game, or staying with the game to miss the start of the second game. On one hand, you've got the local team playing a monumental game. On the other hand, you've got the World Series, and one of the most anticipated matchups for the series in baseball history. It's not like we're talking about going from one football game to another, or going from a football game to completely unrelated programming that easily could have been shown a few minutes later, a la the Heidi incident in 1968 with NBC, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Fortunately, KOLO won't have to deal with that dilemma, and everything will run perfectly swimmingly and smoothly, right? As you probably guessed, yeah, that was not the case. Not even close. Because what followed was a crazy broadcasting controversy that nearly 3 decades later still has people in the city and the state wondering whether the station made the right call. There was a lot to unpack in this Nevada-Louisiana Tech game, so we're just going to jump straight ahead to the 4th quarter, where it starts off tied at 28 apiece. So we've got an extremely close contest to say the least. When the 4th quarter started, chaos ensued. Mike Maxwell got the scoring started in the final period of play, hitting Steve McHenry for a touchdown to make it 35-28. But Louisiana Tech answered by scoring 10 straight points, as a field goal by Marty Kent cut it to a 35-31 game, and a touchdown run by Lee Ragsdale gave the Bulldogs a 38-35 lead. What followed was one of the craziest finishes of the entire season, making this one of the best and most exciting games of the year. Because in the final 90 seconds of the contest, the lead would change hands not once, not twice, but 3 times. In the final 90 seconds, Alex Van Dyke caught an 86-yard touchdown pass from Maxwell on a fly route to give the Wolfpack a 42-38 lead. The Wolfpack should have this one in the bag, right? Well, not quite. Because Louisiana Tech drives immediately down the field, thanks to a nice run up the middle by Billy Thomas to get the Bulldogs into Nevada territory, an amazing catch by Francis Figueroa on the very next play to get the Bulldogs into the red zone, and a 1-yard touchdown run 2 plays later by Billy Thomas again to give Louisiana Tech the lead. Now the Bulldogs lead 45-42 with just 39 seconds left. Game over, right? Nope. Because after Louisiana Tech kicked it off out of bounds, and Nevada got the ball at midfield to start the final drive because of it, Alex Van Dyke made magic happen yet again when he caught his 3rd touchdown pass of the day, with this one being with 13 seconds left, as Nevada won a wild game by a final score of 49-45. The good news was that with a wild game like that coming right down to the wire, you're going to have eyes glued to the screen. No one's going to flip to a different game early. It was just about the perfect game you could have broadcast from an entertainment standpoint. The bad news? Well, with a game like that, it doesn't exactly go by quickly. It takes a while. As in, 4 hours, running well over the allotted time. And if the next program up on this ABC affiliate was the news or a rerun of a TV show, fine, no big deal. But this was Game 1 of the World Series we were talking about here, involving a team with one of the largest fan bases in the country in the Atlanta Braves, due to the TV deal they had with TBS. And right as the game drew to its conclusion, KOLO had two options: stay with the game, or cut away from it early and go to the World Series. You might be saying there was a third option, which would be to show both games at the same time and do a split screen or picture-in-picture, sort of like what ESPN sometimes did with Aaron Judge. However, this posed two problems. Number one, the average TV size today is 51 inches, so you could do a split screen and still see both events perfectly. But back in 1995, not so much. In 1995, the most common type of TV sold was anywhere from 19 to 20 inches. Good luck seeing anything on there. You'd just be ticking off both sets of viewers instead of one set. But even if that wasn't an issue, and even if TV screens were 75 inches back then, KOLO was not allowed to do it, because the Nevada-Louisiana Tech game was a regional game, and the World Series was a national game, and because of that, the two broadcasts could not be combined. As Chuck Alvey, the general manager at Channel 8, said on that proposal, "We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to combine a network signal with anything else." So Alvey and the team had to make the call: switch away from the Nevada game, or keep it on. And I'm sure if the game was a blowout, or if the game didn't involve the local team and was just two random teams in the Big West, that the switch would have been made. But with how close this game was, and with the regional ties attached, Alvey just couldn't pull the trigger on it. He had to let it play out. As Alvey said, "I was in a no-win situation. If we would have broken away from the game, we would have had callers complain that they just invested 3 hours in the game, and now they were left with nothing. The World Series is bigger on a general scale, but I just couldn't break away from the game." The good news was that people got to see an absolutely wild college football game and finish that is remembered fondly in Nevada history. The bad news was that people missed the first 3 or so innings of Game 1 of the World Series, as the station was only able to cut in at 5 o'clock Pacific. So that raises the final question: did Alvey make the right call in staying with the game? According to the people of Reno, absolutely not. Because to say that the phone lines were burning up after this controversial decision would be an understatement, especially since of the 5 runs scored in this game, won by the Braves 3-2, 2 of them came while KOLO was televising college football. The station received anywhere from 200 to 300 calls about the decision, an extremely high number, and only 2 or 3 of those calls were in support of it. This means that just 1% of the calls that KOLO received thought that they made the right call in staying with the Wolfpack game. A whopping 99% of the calls were bashing KOLO for their decision. Among the highlights include a call from an anonymous person who accused Nevada of paying off KOLO to show the end of the game, someone who said that the station should be embarrassed for televising minor league football, and my favorite, just because of how nonsensical it is, a comment by Becky Lamont, who said, "I've been looking forward to this World Series because it's between the Indians and the Braves. It is symbolically the first time that Native Americans could not really lose. Now, Channel 8 just made them lose again by not broadcasting the series." There's a lot to unpack there, including the fact that the Braves and Indians played in the World Series in 1948. So that statement, as crazy as it was, wasn't even true. But still, you get the idea. Just like people were outraged over Heidi and over the network switching off the game and neglecting to show a crazy finish, people were outraged over this, where the network showed the crazy finish and stayed with the game. Can't win them all. I like to criticize station managers when they deserve it, but this truly was a tough call, and truly was a no-win situation, where to be honest, I have no idea what I would have done. I like to think that I would have stayed with the game, but I don't know the pulse of the city, and it was tough to tell on the fly whether that was actually the right call. Because back in 1995, one station manager had to make what you could only describe as a judgment call. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com And be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.